Hello, and thank you for joining me. Today, what I am going to do is, if you watched the video, the pouring the two dragons and the pirate, I was so pleased as to how this pirate face came out. So what I want to do with this one is I actually want to make it into either a coaster or a display, depending on the person. Some people may want to use it as a coaster, others possibly a display. And to do that, I am going to be using, this is the Let's Resin Deep Geometric Octagon mold. And I really like this. I think I use the square and the octagon the most simply because it's easier for me to center a piece versus if I use the round. But also, if you want to use it as a display, it sets better. But before I do that, I don't know if you watched the video. I will post a link below. But I used the yellow green glow in the dark on the pirate's face. Now I knew when I backfilled it with black that it would make everything darker. I do like the way it came out. All that being said, I never looked to see if it actually glowed in the dark. So y'all, check this out. Check it out. I did not think to even look to see if that face glowed when I made the Dragon and Pirates video. But this is the pirate's face. It does glow. That's cool. Cool. It actually does glow in the dark. I didn't expect that, but that opens a whole new bag of ideas for me. Now, back to the little pirate. What I want to do is I am going to use the Let's Resin. This is the red neon because I really want the background to pop. So I'm going to mix some of that. And I did mix up 40 milliliters of resin. Now, according to my measurements, this mold takes 220, but I want to pour the red neon in first. I want to allow that to really cure well enough that when I come back in with just a clear coat of resin that it won't sink. Now the red I'll pour right here in just a minute. The clear coat that I'm going to put on after that, I will do that off camera because it's just simply clear resin. And then after that cures enough that I can put the pirate in, I'll do that. I'm going to then I'll put the pirate in and then pour clear over it. So let's go ahead and start by mixing. And I have just my regular red little cup that I reuse. And I do want to mix some of the red, get my stick here, neon powder. Now on the neon powders, it does say to add just a little bit of the resin, then the powder, and mix it and, kind of squish out any clumps that may appear, and then add more resin. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to add, oh, that is so bright and pretty. I'm going to add a heaping spoon, little spoon of that. See if that's enough. If not, I'll add more. And I'm going to go ahead and start mixing it and seeing if any little poofs of powder show up. Kind of like when you're mixing mica. You want to watch to see if that dry mica, if there's any dry mica pieces that pop up to the top. Look how red that is. That is so pretty. I'm going to let it just sit here for a second. I don't know if you can see down in there, but I do see some little dry pieces starting to pop up. So I just really, if at all possible, I don't want any of those little dry clumps in my piece. And the reason I chose the red, and this almost looks like a candy apple red, is so pretty, is because I really want the background to pop in hopes that that'll make this little pirate pop. I'm going to add a little bit more resin. I think I'm going to go ahead and finish adding the resin. I don't really want the red in my mixing cup, so let me clean my stick off. See if I can get the majority of that red off of there so that I can scrape my mixing cup. And I'm just going to add it all in there. And I don't know if I said earlier, I think I did, but just in case I didn't, this is just 40 milliliters. I just really want a background on here. And then once I mix this in, we'll see if it's still a nice, pretty dark red. I say dark, it's actually really bright, but it's just really pretty. I like the neon powders. I haven't worked with them a whole bunch. You know, I did the testing, and then I recently tried it in I've done a heart or something. I've done some other stuff with it, but not much. I think it's possible that the only thing I've videoed so far, and I may be wrong, but I think it's just the testing of the neon powder. But it's so bright and so pretty, and I really do want to start using it for more stuff just because it is bright. Okay, let me give it a little test just to see if that's bright enough. It appears to be, but because there's so much red in the cup, it's hard to tell. I want to make sure it's opaque enough. Oh yeah, look how pretty that is. All right, let me go ahead and get it poured. And then I'll use my tool to scooch it around. And I'm hoping 40 is enough to cover the bottom. It should be. Let me scrape out the cup. It should be enough to at least put a small layer, which is all that I want, on the very bottom. Let me go ahead and get my little spreading tool and see if I can't get that spread out. And yeah, it should be enough, because all I want is just some red in the background. See if I can get that off there. Let me set these aside, and I'm going to grab my dotting tool and go around the edges because I don't want any bubble pits. And this looks like a piece of the dry powder. All right, let me give that a spray with some alcohol. And I will continue to watch it for bubbles. But I'm going to actually let this cure for 2 or 3 hours, probably closer to 3 or 4. And then I'm going to come back in and do a thin coat of clear. And I'll do that off camera. And then I will meet you back here when we are ready to put the pirate in. So I will see you shortly. I have poured a clear layer over the red. And the clear layer, I actually mixed 60 milliliters for that. And one of the reasons I want to do that is I'm hoping that when I put the pirate in, that when the light hits it, there's a bit of a shadow on that clear that's underneath it to give it more of a 3D effect. Now I have let this cure for about 3 hours, give or take a few. And I've mixed 80 milliliters of resin. And I'm going to put the pirate in, and then I'm actually going to let it sit for a few hours before doming it. It seems like if I try to dome things right away, I always end up with a bubble or something like that. So I'm going to actually let this set for a few hours before I dome. Let me go ahead and get all of this in there, and then we'll work on the pirate. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, I want to do my best to, before I even put that pirate in, let me give the surface a spray. I see some bubbles. Let me let that sit there for a second. Some of those bubbles pop, and then we'll put the pirate in, and I'm going to try real hard to get the pirate centered. Let me just let a few more of those bubbles pop first. That red is so red. All right, let me see if I can carefully set that pirate down in there, and I just want to make sure I tap it. For any bubbles that might be trapped underneath, like that big one right there. And then I'll work on centering it. I am surprised that that didn't go all the way under the resin, but that's okay. It'll go under the resin when I pour the next layer. Looks like there may be a bubble right there. All right, I am surprised that the resin doesn't cover the whole pirate. I don't know if I've accidentally called it dragon or not, the pirate. But I'm going to let this sit for a couple of hours. Give it time to start really thickening up. And then I'll come back in and do that last pour that should put a dome on it. So I will see you shortly. We are ready to do this last pour. And I think I'm going to really have to watch close by like the eye sockets and the nose socket because they do go under so far. Just watch for bubbles more than anything. Let's go ahead and grab my stick instead of that and see if we can't go ahead and get a dome on this. I am also curious as to how it's going to look once it's out of the mold. Like right now, I'm seeing a little bit of the shadowing behind the pirate itself. Let me stop there for a second. See, I don't know if you can see all those little bubbles forming by the nose. Let me see if I can pull you down there a little bit. There's just the lights kind of in the way, but there's a lot of little bubbles there I need to definitely work on. And I think before I finish the pour, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't get my tool in there to kind of get those bubbles out. I really don't want those in there. See if I can get this side of the tool in there. Yeah, like the little nose socket up here is just really bubbly. And down here, I don't know if you can see all those bubbles or not. There's several of them. Now that may take a minute. May take a minute to get all those bubbles out by the nose and the eyes. Just trying to get them to the surface because I really don't want the bubbles in there. And it looks like it's almost done, but I still have a little bit of resin left that I think will fit on here. Oh, I've got a hair or something. I just really don't want those bubbles in there. All right, let me go ahead and see if I can get the rest of it on. And I will, there's another bubble. I will definitely try to watch this real closely. If at all possible, I just don't want those bubbles in there. I have got something on my tool that I can't seem to get off. Well, let me go ahead and pour the rest. We'll get the rest of it on there. And I will babysit this real close, especially by the face because of the bubbles that are forming. Because ideally there will be no bubbles. And then I will meet you back here in 24 hours for the unmolding. See you shortly. It is time for the unmolding, and that red is just so bright and pretty. However, it looks like it's really darkened the pirate. I'm hoping it'll lighten up a little bit after we take it out of the mold. So let's go ahead and get this unmolded. Oh, there we go. Y'all, look at how cool that is. I always like to look in the sides. It does look like I have a bit of a pore line. I always like to look in the sides though, and that red, if you all are looking for a really pretty bright red, this is a real good red. Check out the Let's Resin Neon powders because they are cool. And I will put a link to some of the products that I use in the description box below. But you know, I'm going to have to try to give this a little charge, even though I've charged it before I put it in the coaster. I want to see if, yeah, see that to me is a cool display. But I do want to see if it'll still glow. Because if so, I would like to use some more glow pigment powder in some of my other projects and do something like this. But that red is so pretty. Let me go ahead and give it a charge, and then I'll be right back. This is what it looks like in the coaster. So it does glow through. Well, that it does still glow, and it definitely gives me ideas. Definitely. I have this lamp on over here. I turned it off. I'm going to turn it back on for a second because I don't know if you can see the shadowing underneath, and that's kind of what I was going for. That way it doesn't just look flat in there. And the red, oh, the red is so pretty. That red is just gorgeous. Let me go ahead and turn that back off. And this is the finished product. I do really like the way it turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I do want to thank you for watching and ask you to please consider hitting the like, share, and if you haven't already yet, the subscribe button. It really does help the channel. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time. Thanks.